All right, just testing out a new piece of this software, so it might take me a second to get going here. And yeah, let's do it. Looks like we got it. There we go. All right, here we go. Almost ready for you. And let's go. So, guys, it's time for the podcast. And today we are talking about a question I got actually doing one of my Q&As on my story yesterday. And we're talking about it because honestly, I love this question. And so we're going to dig into it a little deeper. So, guys, we are going to do a little bit of Q&A after the podcast, but I'm going to get going right away. So make sure you tune in. Make sure that you are sticking around so that we can do some Q&A at the end. And we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dufsel, and today we are talking about goals. And more specifically, we're talking about a question that I got doing a Q&A on my Instagram story yesterday. Somebody asked me, what is my #1 goal in life? And my #1 goal in life, when I got the question, honestly, I was a little bit stumped, I realized, which was weird because I consider myself a very vision and impact driven person. And then I realized that the reason I was stumped was because of the way that I view my goals. And when I talk about the way that I view my goals, essentially what I mean is, when a lot of people talk about their goals, they have a very specific, I want to be the UFC champion. I want to build $1 million business. I want to achieve this. I want to go here, whatever it might be. And when I was thinking about my #1 goal, I was like, I don't really have a very specific financial goal for my business. I don't have I need to hit this amount of money, or I don't have, a specific goal for I need to work with this number of athletes. There's not a specific thing with that. So when it came down to my #1 goal, the answer I ended up giving to that question after thinking about it, honestly, most of the day, was my #1 goal for life is freedom and opportunity. And so when I say freedom and opportunity, what does this mean? Well, I remember listening quite a long time ago to a video. It was Joe Rogan talking, and he was talking about, I can't remember the exact quote, but he was talking about being the hero in your own movie. Imagine your life as a movie, and today is day one. Be the hero. What does that take? And when I thought about that, I remember thinking, when I was a little kid, I always wanted to do something special, and I didn't really know what that was. But I knew I loved sports. Even though I honestly wasn't very good at sports, I was absolutely obsessed. I loved hockey. I could tell you the top 25 scorers in the NHL every single season, how many goals they had, how many assists they had, what team they played for, their line mates, their jersey number, everything. I was obsessed because I just loved that thought of man, imagine living a life that kids grow up wanting to live. Imagine, living that kind of special life. And so I wanted to be an NHL player, but I was never good enough for that. So I was like, okay, well, what would be a close second? What would I be able to do that if I, might not be good enough to be a player in the league, what could I do that's, around that so that I could still be involved and I could still live that cool, special life? And so I loved being in the gym. So I wanted to be a strength coach. I wanted to work with the Ottawa Senators specifically because I grew up in Ottawa and that was my favorite team growing up. And the reason that I wanted that, plain and simple, was because what a cool life, being around NHL hockey players all the time, being able to help them prepare for their games. Damn, so cool. And so that was, the opportunity that I wanted. And it came down to, I always wanted to be down the road, that dad that when other, my kids' friends were talking about me, they were like, well, what does your dad do? And then my response would be that thing that, the kids were like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like I always wanted to have that, that level of like something special that I did, something that, other people wanted or other people admired. And so when I was thinking deeper about, being the hero in my own movie, or that quote from Joe Rogan, my thought was, I need to create that life. Now that goal shifted from, back in the day, wanting to work with the Ottawa Senators, to then realizing that, that meant being on the road for a large majority of the year. And I'm a homebody. I don't like doing that necessarily. Don't get me wrong. I like traveling, but I don't like living on the road. And then that made me shift my thought to like, okay, what other kind of direction can I go, living that special life, again, being that hero of my own movie in the way that Joe Rogan was saying it. And that, ended up leading me down the path that I'm on right now. And now one of the things that really drives me in the day-to-day, again, isn't a specific goal of like, I want to drive a certain car, I want to live in a certain size of house or anything like that. But the thing that drives me now day to day is opportunity and living a life that there's never anything that I'm looking back on saying, I wish. So like, as an example, I know a couple of years ago, I'd been working with fighters for a little while, and I kept seeing pictures and videos of the UFC Performance Institute in Vegas, this $12 million facility with like all the equipment and all the technology and all the coolest stuff. I was like, man, I wish I could even just go spend a day in that gym. And then over the last few years, as I built my business up, as I've been working on, improving my abilities on social media, working on, all these different things to help put myself in front of more people, help grow the size of the business, help get my name out there more, I got the opportunity to go in January. And not only did I get the opportunity to go, I also got a standing invitation from the coaches there and they told me, they were like, anytime you're back in Vegas, let us know and we're happy to have you in for a couple of days. And so I'm actually going back next week. And so that was just one of those cool things that I'm like, when I talk about opportunity as one of my biggest goals in life, I'm not going to have to look back now when I'm in my 50s, 60s, 70s and be like, man, I wish I could have, gone and spent time in the UFC Performance Institute. I'm going to be able to look back and be like, man, I went and spent time in the UFC Performance Institute and it was awesome. Right? So everything that I look at in my life and think, I wish I could do whatever it might be, my goal is that I get to actually do those things. And I never have an opportunity that escapes me that I can control, right? So working with professional athletes, although the end goal has shifted, between the sports and things like that, has been a goal of mine since I was a little kid. And now I work with professional athletes every day, but I want to continue to work with more, and I want to continue to work with higher level professional athletes. So the things that I do in my day-to-day life are working towards that goal so that down the road, I can look back and I can be like, yeah, I spent my life training professional athletes to compete at the highest level, because that's something I've wanted to do forever. Now, another piece of that is I've wanted for a long time to do public speaking, and like public speaking and teaching. Like I really like the idea of being on a stage, teaching something to a group of people to help impact them. And so in February, I got to go down to a gym and run some seminars in Texas to, teach the methods and how I do the things that I do to a group of athletes down there. That's one step in the right direction. Every single day, for the most part, the last few weeks, I've had some scheduling trouble, so I haven't been on here every day. But every single day, for the most part, I do a podcast where I sit down and I speak to an audience. Although it's virtual, I sit down and I speak to an audience and I talk about, various things about what I'm doing with my business, mindset, approach to sport for athletes, whatever else it might be. That's a step in the right direction of teaching myself how to speak in front of groups of people. And again, working towards that goal of putting my name out there in front of more people, getting these opportunities that I'm talking about to come help shift the industry that I've been in for as long as I have been. One of the other goals in my career is to be well known as someone who is changing the strength and conditioning industry for the better. Now, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know that if I want to become one of those people, then that means I need to get up every day. I need to work very hard. I need to learn a lot, and I need to do everything I can to improve my abilities as a coach, and in turn, improve my chances of being put into those rooms and into those positions. Now, this also falls outside of just business, right? Because the other thing, as I started going off of the be the hero of your own story quote and figuring out what I want that story to actually look like and what I need to do to work towards actually achieving the goals of what I want that story to look like, the other side of that is thinking about looking back on life when I'm done, right? When I'm 80, 90 years old, however old it might be, and life is pretty much behind me. One of the things that really drives me as well is never being the I wish guy. And when I talk about the I wish guy, I'm talking about I believe it was the 12th podcast I ever put out. And we're on episode 476 by the time of this recording. So it's a ways back. But I was talking with a former professional football player, and he said that even though he got cut in, I think it was each of his first 2 seasons trying out for the team he ended up playing for, he kept going back. And so I asked him, I was like, what made you keep going back? And he said, I never wanted to look back on those tryouts and say, I wish I could have done more, or I wish I had gone back and tried again. And I just knew that I had more to give. And that is something that drives me every single day when I wake up, because I never want to look back at life and wish that I had been able to have an opportunity. I never want to look back at life and wish I had done something that I could have controlled and wasn't able to do. So when I say that, I mean, with the business, like I was talking about, the level of athletes that I'm working with and things like that. Now, I can't necessarily control, a bunch of UFC fighters walking through the door and needing coaching. But what I can control is waking up every single day, working on myself as a coach, working on myself as a person, working on myself as a business owner, and putting myself in front of as many people as possible to give me the opportunities to work with those athletes. But then also from a life standpoint, I'm not necessarily driven by living in a mansion one day or driving a super fancy car or anything like that. But what I am driven by is having the ability to travel, having the ability to buy a house that I want to buy, having the ability to live the life that I want to live, right? So when it comes to never looking back on life, wishing you could have done more, or wishing you could have, gone further, or whatever else it might be, that's the main thing for me, where I want to look back and I want to know I truly did everything I could. The work that I put in allowed me to live the best life that I was meant to live. And never looking back and going, man, if I had just worked a little harder, maybe I could have, made a little bit more money and allowed me to take this trip or go to this place or do this thing, right? So basically, every time I look at something and I think, man, that would be cool if I'd be able to insert thing here. Then I look at myself and I'm like, okay, what can I do today to move myself closer to being able to do that? And that's something that I really want to reinforce with all of you, because it was a good mindset shift for me. And it was good to, confront that when I got that question in my Q&A yesterday. If you're listening to this, whether you're here live or whether you're on the replay, what I want you to think about when you're listening to this is, what are those goals in life? And that can be for your sport. That can just be for life in general, whatever it might be. What are those goals that you have in life, or those things you have in life where you're like, man, I really wish I could insert here, and whether that's compete at the highest level in a sport, whether that's travel to a certain place, whether that's live in a certain size of house, whether that's make a certain amount of money, whether that's, be famous, I don't know, whatever it is for you. And then when you think about those wishes, when you think about those things that you're like, man, I wish I could do this, then think about what you're actually doing to move towards it. So when I think about, as an example, wanting to work with the highest level athletes in the world, what am I doing to work towards it? Well, I'm waking up every single day and I'm working with the athletes that I have. I'm trying to improve myself as a coach to get them the best possible results, because the better results they get, the the better the better they do, obviously, and the more they can move up the ladder, but also the better that looks for me, the more doors and the more opportunity that opens for me as well. Right? So I am always going to do my best to get the absolute best results because I know the best athletes want the best results. And if they can consistently see, hey, everybody that works with this Kenny guy is getting phenomenal results, that's going to open up more doors. That's going to open up more opportunities. So on the days that I wake up and I feel lazy and I don't really want to work that hard or anything like that, I think back to what I want out of life, which is to work with these high-level athletes. And if I'm going to work with these high-level athletes, I'm going to need to get the best possible results every single day. And if I need to get the best possible results every single day, I need to put the fucking work in. So I do it even when I don't feel like it. When it comes to, travel opportunities or speaking opportunities or anything like that, that's why I'm so relentless with my social media. Because when it comes to speaking opportunities and when it comes to opening more doors through my career, I want to be well known. I want people to know my name. I want that if you are in this industry, if you are an athlete in this industry, that when my name comes up, you know my name and you know the positive reputation that comes with that name. And so if I want that to, get those opportunities to help more athletes, to speak on stages, to help more coaches, whatever it might be, then I know that comes with consistent effort. That comes with putting my face out there, putting my name out there, allowing the people to scrutinize what I do on social media. And then eventually over time, that continues to open more doors, right? But if I wake up one day and I'm like, I don't feel like, posting my videos today, I don't feel like, doing this or doing that, and I just stop, then those opportunities or those potential opportunities down the road go away. Right? So for you right now, think about it. Is it, I want to win a world championship as a martial artist? Is it, I want to make $1 million? Is it, I want to go live in a different country? Like, what is that goal? And what are the things that you're doing today to push yourself towards that goal or that wish, to make that wish a reality? So guys, I know I went off on a couple of different directions with this one, but I hope that was valuable. That was just a little bit of insight into, me, who I am, what drives me, and then what keeps driving me on the days that I don't necessarily feel as good. I hope you got some value from that. I hope you learned something. If you did, I'd love to know what it was. So shoot me a message across any of my social media platforms. The links on how to do that will be in the show notes below. As always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode. All right. Let's see if this all worked. Oops.